Good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra and here are the headlines we are tracking at this hour. Global stock markets gain after US inflation slows to a two-year low. The US Fed kicks off its two-day meeting. CNBC survey shows 91% of market participants are expecting a status quo. Majority also expect the Fed to hold fire at least till November this year. SEBI bars Z promoters Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding any key position in listed entities. This poses another hurdle for the Z-Sony merger, as Puneet Goenka was supposed to be at the helm of the combined entity. Z promoters moved the securities appellate tribunal against the order.
We see this defining relationship as a unique connection between the world's oldest and largest democracies.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there could not be a more critical time for Indian and American businesses to come together. Calls on both nations to promote market access, advance transparency, and strengthen respective democracies to unleash full potential. Former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey claims the Indian government had threatened to shut down the social messaging platform during the farmer protests. The government hits back. Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar calls Dorsey's claim an outright lie. Telecom regulator TRAI directs access providers to deploy artificial intelligence and machine learning-based systems to curb pesky calls. All access providers told to comply within 30 days. The global CEO of Amway, Milind Pant, says the company is doubling down on investments and product innovation in India, expects India to become a $25 trillion economy in over 2 decades, also adding that you need patience and optimism when asked about regulatory challenges in the country. That's an exclusive. After imposing a stock limit on wheat for the first time in 15 years, the government will take stock of the stock limits imposed on pulses. Centre will hold a meeting with states tomorrow. Union Food Secretary says stock limits on wheat were imposed due to hoarding and the move is aimed at cooling prices. As the Gujarat coast braces for Cyclone Biparjoy, Met Department warns of potential damage. The department also asks the government to help fight fake news, calls for rules on weather reporting along the lines of SEBI's rules against finfluencers. Former US President Donald Trump will appear in court to face federal charges for retaining national security materials and obstruction of justice. Trump is expected to plead not guilty and has called the case a political witch hunt. Straight to the day's trading action. Market gain for the second straight day, with the Nifty and Sensex ending over 0.5% in the green. The mid-cap index hit a record high after it soared over 1%. However, financials continued to underperform the blue chips. Nifty Bank ended 0.25% higher. Meanwhile, India's market cap rose further and is at a 7-month high of $3.5 trillion. Tyre manufacturing giant MRF has created a new milestone for the Indian stock market. The company's stock has become the first to cross the 1 lakh rupee mark. It has taken the stock more than a decade to climb up from 10,000 rupees per share to 1 lakh rupees. In the last 3 months, the stock with a market cap of over 42,000 crore rupees has rallied over 20%. The big data point moving global markets. Inflation in the United States has eased to a 2-year low for the month of May. Inflation has dropped to 4% thanks to energy and food prices cooling off. But core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices, remains stubborn at 5.3%, indicating that pricing pressure has not fully eased. Amid this backdrop, the U.S. Federal Open Markets Committee has kicked off its 2-day meeting. A CNBC survey shows 91% of market participants are expecting a status quo. Majority also expect the Fed to hold fire at least till November this year. CNBC's Steve Leisman is here with the Fed survey. All right, let's move on to the day's big corporate story. SEBI has barred Z promoters Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding any key position in listed entities. The market regulator has alleged that Chandra and Goenka abused their position as directors of a listed company to siphoning off funds for their own benefit. Z promoters have moved the appellate tribunal against the order. The SEBI clampdown has also cast a shadow on the proposed Z-Sony merger. Here's that story.
SEBI has banned SL Group chairperson Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka, the MD and CEO of Zee Entertainment, from holding directorial or key managerial positions in any listed entity. The SEBI whip came after a probe found the father-son duo of abusing their positions and siphoning off funds for personal benefits. The SEBI probe revealed that Subhash Chandra had given a letter of comfort to Yes Bank in 2018 for availing credit to a group of companies without the knowledge of Zee board.
This letter assured a fixed deposit of 200 crore from a group entity including Zee. On the basis of this, Yes Bank adjusted the 200 crore rupee FD of Zee against any such dues. But a large part of these funds originated from Zee itself or any other listed companies. Now let's look at a flowchart of one such circular transaction. Now Zee gave close to 8 crore rupees to Living Entertainment, which then moved to Khoobsurat Infra, which then moved to Spirit Infra Power. Similarly, another 9 crores moved from Zee Entertainment to SL Business Excellence to Spirit Infra Power. Now, a total of 17 crores has moved from Spirit Infra Power to Pan India Infra to SL Green Mobility back to Zee Entertainment. It can be seen that the Zee money received from the SL Group company had originated from the bank accounts of Zee itself. In another instance, SEBI flagged fund siphoning in SL Group's Shirpur Gold Refinery, where Shirpur Gold Refinery Promoter Group Company diverted assets worth 400 crore rupees from 2019 to 2021.
Zee board says that they are currently reviewing the order and an appropriate legal action will be taken. However, the latest clampdown from SEBI brings the spotlight on the proposed Zee-Sony merger.
Question remains is should Puneet Goenka be paid the non-compete fees of 1100 crores, given that he will no longer not even be in the merged entity. The other way of looking at it from Puneet Goenka's point of view is that if he's no longer going to be the CEO of the merged entity, is there any case for them to have that merger? Can he just continue running Zee at a 4% equity shareholding? That again remains to be confirmed.
I don't think Sony is going to back out because I think Sony is also wanting to do the merger just as Zee has been doing. So we have seen positive commentary also, like, if you look at Sony counterpart back in Japan, they had raised a statement that they expect the merger closure to happen in the second half of this financial year. So clearly trends are moving towards the positive side in terms of wherein Sony does not want to back out.
Well, Puneet Goenka has approached the Securities Appellate Tribunal to challenge the SEBI order, but at the moment that doesn't change anything. The matter is now listed on 15th of June. Remember, even though Zee doesn't need to appoint any new directors immediately because they have the minimum required number of directors on their board, which is 6. However, since Puneet Goenka was the only executive director, the company will have to find a replacement for him in less than 3 months if SAT does not stay the SEBI order. With Jagruti and Surbhi Sutaria, this is Shivani Bazaz.
Let's move on now. A day after the government imposed a stock limit on wheat for the first time in 15 years, sources have said the government will meet states tomorrow to discuss the stock limit for tur and urad pulses. The government is likely to focus on the prices of these pulses and the action taken by states against hoarders. At least 19 workers have been injured following a gas leak at Tata Steel's plant in Odisha. The company said that the incident occurred during inspection and the injured workers were immediately shifted to an occupational health center inside the plant. Emergency protocol was activated after the incident and access to the area has been shut down. Domestic passenger vehicles registered the highest ever sales in May, according to data released by the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. PV sales jumped up more than 3 lakh units, clocking in a 13% jump year-on-year in the two-wheeler category. Sales shot up to more than 14 lakh units, registering a 17% jump year-on-year. SIAM President Vinod Agarwal said that he anticipates this growth trajectory to continue in the current economic environment. The US-India Business Council's India Ideas Summit has kicked off in Washington. Addressing the summit, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there could not be a more critical time for Indian and American businesses to come together. He also called upon both the countries to advance transparency, promote market access to strengthen democracies. US International Development Finance Corporation CEO Nathan Scott said that US has had an exposure of $3.2 billion in Indian businesses and more deals are on the table. The summit comes just ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US next week.
We know that India and the United States are big, complicated countries. We certainly have work to do to advance transparency, to promote market access, to strengthen our democracies, to unleash the full potential of our people. But the trajectory of this partnership is unmistakable, and it is filled with promise. At the heart of the strategic relationship between our countries are economic ties. And under the leadership of President Biden and Prime Minister Modi, and private sector leaders in this room tonight and beyond, it is growing stronger by the day. Last year, as you all know, trade between our nations reached a record $191 billion, making the United States the largest trading partner for India. American companies have now invested at least $54 billion in India, from manufacturing to telecommunications. In the United States, Indian companies have invested over $40 billion in IT and pharmaceuticals and more, supporting 425,000 jobs from California to Georgia.
If you ask me what I would bet on the most, what is that one force multiplier for this relationship and for the global well-being? Indeed, it is tech. It is the master key to unlock the real potential in the relationship. There is a lot of synergy and complementarity between us in the tech space.
And speaking of the India-Idea Summit, Amway CEO said he is very bullish on India. In a conversation with Shireen Bhan, he said that India is in a geostrategic sweet spot. He added that Amway is doubling down on its investment for production innovation in India.
As I look ahead for India specifically, look at the next 20, 30 years, I'm very bullish. It's mathematics that India will be a $25 trillion economy by 2045, 2050, which is the size of the US economy today. And it will get there because there are many tailwinds in India's favor. It's got a youthful, economy, youthful society. They're driven, they're entrepreneurial, they're health focused. It's investing in digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure. And then to your point, there's a geostrategic sweet spot.
And you can watch that entire interview with Amway CEO at 9:30 p.m. only on CNBC-TV18. It's time for a short break, but coming up on the other side, the Met Department asked the government to help fight fake news, calls for rules on weather reporting along the lines of SEBI's rules against finfluencers. More on this when we are back. Welcome back to India Business Hour. Telecom regulator TRAI has directed access providers to deploy artificial intelligence and machine learning-based systems to curb pesky calls. The regulator has said that the system is capable of evolving to deal with new patterns used by unregistered telemarketers. All access providers have been given 30 days to comply. The centre has dismissed reports claiming a breach of personal data registered on the Health Ministry's CoWIN portal. Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar has said that the Indian Commuter Emergency Response Team has reviewed the alleged breach and found that the CoWIN portal was not directly breached. Chandrasekhar also said that the data that the automated account on Telegram was allegedly sharing used previously breached databases. Aircraft lessor Air Castle has filed a fresh plea against SpiceJet. The lessor has claimed that the airline has failed to pay dues and is seeking insolvency proceedings. This is the second time the lessor has moved NCLT against SpiceJet in an attempt to seek the initiation of insolvency proceedings. The court will hear the matter on the 17th of July. The centre has hit back at former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey after he claimed that the Indian government had threatened to shut down the social media platform during the farmers' protests. Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar called Dorsey's claim an outright lie. Ashwin Kumar reports on Dorsey's comments.
Hashtag Jack Dorsey. This was the #1 trend on Twitter India for very many hours. Now, why is that? Breaking Points, a US-based self-proclaimed anti-establishment YouTube channel, decided to host Jack Dorsey. And when asked about government pressure on Twitter, this is what the former Twitter boss had to say about India.
Well, India is a country that had many requests of us around the farmers' protest, around particular journalists that were critical of the government. It manifested in ways such as we will shut Twitter down in India, which is a very large market for us. We will raid the homes of your employees, which they did. We will shut down your offices if you don't follow suit. And this is India, a democratic country.
Well, the Minister of State, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, for Ministry of Electronics and IT, lashed out at Dorsey's comments as being quote-unquote a work of fiction. He further went on to say that Twitter repeatedly was in violation of Indian laws between 2020 and 2022. And he further went on to say that Dorsey's Twitter had a problem with sovereignty of Indian law.
I just want to refresh Jack Dorsey's memory, and certainly all your viewers, that between 2020 and 2022, Twitter was violating Indian law multiple times. And it was in non-compliance several times during those 2 years. And it started complying only in June 2022. During that entire period, nobody went to jail, nobody was raided. And so Jack Dorsey, knowing fully well that Twitter did not comply with Indian law and did not face any consequence of that, is today lying and making up this story about raids and arrests.
Well, the opposition leaders are simply not buying the minister's explanation. Kapil Sibal says that Jack Dorsey, being the former Twitter boss, has no reason to lie. Manish Tiwari criticized the government over stifling of dissent over the last 9 years.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar says that this is a lie. Why would he tell a lie? There's no reason for Jack Dorsey to tell a lie that they threatened Twitter at that point in time when the protests were going on, that they would shut their offices and that they would raid the then Twitter employees or the Twitter employees at that point in time. There's no reason for him to tell a lie. He's not against the BJP. He's not against this government. Why would Twitter be against anybody? Right? They're in business, that's all. And there is every reason for others to tell a lie.
Well, what Jack Dorsey has said is not surprising at all. In the past 9 years, after 2014, there has been a systematic erosion of the freedom of speech and expression and civil liberties in the country.
Interestingly, Jack Dorsey's allegations on government pressure comes just days ahead of the Prime Minister's state visit to the United States. In New Delhi, Ashmit Kumar.
Thanks, Ashmit, for joining us with that report. Let's now focus on the cyclonic storm Biparjoy, which is expected to make landfall in Gujarat's Kutch district on Thursday. The Indian Met Department has warned that the cyclone has extensive damage potential, added that Kutch, Dwarka and Jamnagar may receive very heavy rainfall. Authorities have already started evacuating people from villages within a 10-kilometer radius from the coasts of Kutch and Saurashtra. Indian Coast Guard evacuated 50 personnel from an oil rig located 40 kilometers off the Dwarka coast in an overnight operation. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a meeting with disaster management ministers of states and union territories. Our team of reporters get us the latest from Jamnagar and Dwarka.
A wind speed of almost 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, light drizzle. We are in Jamnagar, which is just adjoining Dwarka, which is one of the worst affected areas, expected to be hit due to the cyclone, which will make a landfall on 15th of evening. Now, remember, today heavy to very heavy rainfall was experienced in several low-lying areas of Gujarat. Several measures are being put in place, even as it is expected that the wind speed will only rise tomorrow and day after tomorrow. It's expected to cross over 135 kilometers per hour, along with heavy to very heavy rainfall in several locations on the coastline of Gujarat.
ये दृश्य है द्वारका नगरी के। द्वारका प्रसिद्ध यहाँ का पर्यटक स्थल भी है। यहाँ पर यह मान्यता भी मानी जाती है द्वारकाधीश की, क्योंकि द्वारका नगरी पूरे विश्व में प्रसिद्ध है। लेकिन आप द्वारका का ये आप समुद्र देख सकते हैं, किस तरह के समुद्र में जो तूफान है वो यहाँ पर दिख रहा है। यहाँ पर जिस तरह से कंटिन्यू बारिश हो रही है, जो साइक्लोन आने वाला है वो कच्छ के जखों के पास वो वहाँ पर टकराएगा, लेकिन उसके पहले उसके अराउंड जितने भी 100 किलोमीटर का एरिया है वहाँ पर उसकी इफेक्ट सबसे ज़्यादा होगी। जिस तरह से माना भी जा रहा है, और आने वाले 2 दिन गुजरात के लिए संकट का ये दिन माना जा रहा है।
And large portions of India are tuning in to news channels and accessing news sources to find out more about the very severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy, and the IMD website is seeing some heavy traffic. But this high interest has thrown up a problem for the Indian Met Department: fake news. CNBC-TV18 Santya Gora reports that the department has asked the government to help with rules on weather reporting along the lines of SEBI's rules against finfluencers.
One website claims the cyclone will make landfall in Mumbai and Goa, when in reality, data from the Indian Met Department shows it is poised to make landfall between Mandvi in India and Karachi in Pakistan. Another video clip wrongly quotes the IMD as warning that Biparjoy will further intensify but confuses wind speed with the cyclone speed. The IMD says such misleading or incorrect content can be harmful, as it can create panic when not warranted or downplay an otherwise serious situation. Very severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy is just the latest trigger for such half-baked or incorrect information being put out on various platforms and messaging apps.
We are also getting such type of video during monsoon, during heat wave, cold wave, or during heavy rainfall activities.
The IMD urges people seeking information to rely only on its own website for weather predictions and up-to-date information, especially where severe weather events are concerned.
Many times we get the old videos of earlier cyclone, and they fabricate that information, and somehow that messages comes. But it's very difficult for us to even control on that information. So at the same time, what we can say is to visit our website and get the latest available current information and authenticated information from IMD website, mausam.imd.gov.in.
A big reason for this fake news, IMD says, is that such weather events are being seen as great tools to increase followers. But the content comes from people who may not have the expertise to correctly interpret the raw data they pull from IMD's website.
The IMD says cyclone season is by far the most problematic because cyclone names are predetermined and readily available online. There have been instances where people have named thunderstorms, western disturbances and other smaller weather events with those names much before a cyclone is formed and officially named. The IMD has asked the government to establish a set of rules to curb social media influencers and proponents of fake news from using such weather events as a forum to increase followers, much like SEBI's rules to curb influencers and unlicensed advisors offering stock trading tips on social media platforms and messaging apps. But it says till these rules are formulated, people should only rely on official IMD bulletins for correct weather reports. In Mumbai, with camera person Swapnil, this is Santya for CNBC-TV18.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC TV.